Hey guys, welcome to Quinian's Budget Crafts. So the next one in the book here is the Warden. And they get an interesting perk here called Prison Cars. You're allowed to reduce the cost of the car by 4 cans to a minimum of 5, only on a middleweight vehicle, and only once. And it also reduces the hull of the vehicle by 2. It's pretty much the opposite of armor plating. I will use that because it does adjust the cost of the car. It's got some other pretty cool perks, but I'm not really using anything that's not a unique weapon or something that affects the cost of the build. Although I will try to put some stuff in there to where if you did want to use all of the rules, there's still things there for you. For the cars here, I've got a little pickup truck with a rear gunner, I got this little red, armored car thing, and this Pseudo tank. I think I can do something pretty cool with that. It can't be a tank because it's not Rutherford, but I think I can kind of get around that. You'll see. First thing though, I gotta look through my box of parts and find out what it is I'm gonna use. I think I got it figured out pretty well here. For the blue truck there, I've got a harpoon on it and a glue dropper, and of course the dude in the back is just gonna count as a heavy machine gun. The harpoons and stuff is mostly because I misread how Warden works, but it's fine, it'll be fine. For the Pseudo tank here, the little turret thing on top actually does spin, so I'll go ahead and use that. We're going to make that a 125mm cannon with a turret mount and some other stuff. And then for the red one here, I found a pretty cool ram that has like a little slot in it for like a gun or something. I'm not real sure how that works with a ram, but hey, why not? We're going to put a harpoon on the ram. And a whole bunch of armor plates. First things first though, we need to modify these things. This is, I don't know what this tool's called. If anybody knows, let me know, because I would like to buy more of them. But this little drum grinder thing does really, really well on these little Matchbox or Hot Wheels or whatever other brand car you've got. It'll grind right through plastic and metal like it's not there. But I needed to get rid of the wheel wells in this truck to make the gunner fit, because I printed him just a little bit too big. But I'd rather him be too big and visible than too small and fragile and you can't really see him anyway. Always do whatever looks the coolest. Since I wanted to mount a weapon on the top, I decided to go ahead and get rid of the skylight too. Also, I went back and reread how Warden works, and the drivers are welded into the car, so yeah, they're not supposed to have windows and stuff they can escape from. For the red one here, I needed to go ahead and grind the chunk out of the front, whatever that is, to make room for the ram to fit. And at some point mid-build, I decided I wanted to go ahead and put a mine dropper on this thing because it's something I haven't used before and it sounds pretty cool. I didn't want to hang out the back though. I figured, this truck's got a big, the way it's designed, you can use something inside of it falling out, which would be pretty cool. But in order to do that, I had to take the bottom of this car off so I could cut that door off. I was trying not to take the cars apart because I'm trying to keep it simple, but in this case it kind of had to happen. But it's not all bad because it led to something I probably wouldn't have done otherwise. I'll explain that in a second. First though, go ahead and pop the bottom of this car off and use a regular old rotary cutting wheel, the red ones that are scary, and just go ahead and cut the door right off. The little post that was used to hold the bottom of the car to the body or whatever, that had to go away too so that I could make the thing fit. It's not a problem though, we can just go ahead and glue around the edges when we put it back together. It'll hold just fine. What's kind of cool about these like pot metal die cast cars is you don't actually have to cut all the way through parts like that. You can just score it and then grab it with some pliers and snap it right off. And then using the strange little drum grinder thing, go ahead and clean up all the corners. More important than cleaning the corners is you want to make sure there's nothing sharp there, because that'd mess up your game session pretty quick if somebody cut themselves. The same issue with the blue truck too though, is the wheel wells on the inside. They were too big to get my mine dropper to fit, so I ended up grinding them away. As for the mine dropper itself, the mines that I used, those are on Thingiverse. There's a link for them below. The conveyor belt I ended up making myself, just designed to fit in this particular vehicle. It's over on my Patreon just because uploading to thingy is kind of a hassle. It is not a paid thing though, it's a free public post. If you want it, go grab it. You want to remix it, knock yourself out. I really don't care. But I said this is modeled to fit into this particular car. So if your car is different or something, definitely adjust it to fit whatever you're using it for. So this here is what I was talking about with the happy accident. When I ripped the bottom of that thing off, the tires came off and then it left a giant gaping hole and it's kind of a mess. So I decided I'd go ahead and swap out the tires. I ended up with using these real big ones here. Again, they're a Thingiverse file. I don't know which one. I'm pretty sure that there's one on there that's like just a bunch of tires. And that's probably what this came from. But we got to go ahead and paint everything. So do the tires up in black. I'm not worried about putting silver in the middle or anything like that. Solid black is fine. And then little black on whatever other parts might need it. For the scary dude man and the machine gun, same idea. Solid black, a little bit of dry brush. That's all you really need. If you're really into painting, I mean, go for it, go crazy. I'm not, so the simplest thing I can get away with is definitely what I'm going to do. For the mines themselves, I just went ahead and painted them in like an OD green. While I had that green out, I would use that to go ahead and paint up the ammo box. Then I painted the tray that the ammo box sits in a red. And the little bracket that actually holds it to the post in silver. And while I had some silver on my brush, I just went ahead and used that to highlight the edges and hard surfaces and stuff like that on Scary Machine Gun Guy, just so he's not, blending into the background. Same as I do every other ammo belt, I just painted it gold and then did some black lines for the linkages. It's definitely not 100% authentic, but at a glance, it does its job. To finish up the mines here, I went ahead and painted the raised portions in black, and then put a little red dot in the center because it looks cool. There's not really a whole lot of logic behind a lot of what I do. As long as it looks cool, that's what I go for. To attach the mines to the conveyor belt itself, all you gotta do is put down a drop of crazy glue and stick them right on. I did print a couple that I had put the mine onto the conveyor belt first. I ended up not liking that, and it was a lot easier to paint them separate anyway. When I went to glue the conveyor belt into the truck, I realized I did want it raised a bit like this. So I went ahead and cut a dowel and stuck that under there and glued it all in place. I just think it looks better with a little bit more height to it. And with those tires I was talking about earlier, for the front ones, I'm just going to head and glue them directly to the existing front tires because why not? They work. It's a pretty good mounting point. For the back ones though, I went ahead and glued those to the fender, the outside of the fender there. It leaves a pretty substantial gap behind it, but you can fill that gap with some CA glue and baking soda. It makes kind of like a brittle concrete almost. It does work pretty well to hold on stuff like this though. And now we have some really wide set aggressive tires that I wouldn't have done otherwise. So I'm actually glad that I kind of messed that up a little bit. Just go ahead and glue the ram on there. I also wanted to put steel nets on this one, mostly because I misread the description of Warden and thought they were like a capture crew or whatever. They're not, but whatever. Put steel nets on this. Pretty simple, just a bit of that splatter guard that I used for the windows in the other video, and a couple of toothpicks. Anyway, we'll attach those in a second. First though, let's go ahead and start gluing on these various bits of armor paneling. A couple of these have little window slots in them, so obviously I'm going to put those over the windows. Some of them don't. But while I was gluing those on, I decided that the roof of this red thing here is kind of irritating me, so I went ahead and snapped it off, and I realized that there's actually a hole under the white roof panel there. So if you wanted to have like a turret gunner or something with this particular model, you definitely could. The hole already exists. But without that stupid white roof on there, now I can go ahead and put more of those panels and stuff. Also, the holes left behind from that white bit of plastic makes a perfect mounting point for these nets. All I had to do was jam the toothpick ends into that hole. I think they required a little bit of shaving to make them fit. And now we have some strange unintentional Mad Max look. And then I went ahead and covered the hole on the top by layering a couple of those panels. Put one on the windshield. Same idea for the blue truck. I just covered the hole in the roof with a big old panel. Glue the gunner into the back and the glue dropper onto the bumper there. Glue the harpoon on top. And then just start layering on armor panels kind of wherever it makes sense. For the pseudo tank, I was actually kind of trying to hide these wheels here with the panels. I ended up not having enough or any large enough to completely hide them, but it is an upgrade, so maybe the wheels still exist, but it also has tracks. I mean, sure. Ended up making kind of a mess out of this with a lot of glue and baking soda, but I think it actually worked out. I mean, these vehicles aren't supposed to be perfect. These are definitely kind of welded together last minute, no real thought put into it, you know, in the lore. So this does kind of work. Alrighty, now that everything's glued on, it looks pretty good, but it looks a little too good. We need to make these kind of weathered. I'm going to try to make some weathering powder goop stuff for the rust goop. I got a little bit of help from the guys on the Discord. I ended up mixing some grout powder with a little bit of copper metallic to get it that shiny look, and a barn red. And then I used a bit of 50/50 water glue to actually moisten it up to make it mix. And it wasn't red enough for me, so I added a little bit of Ferrari red from my airbrush collection. Once that's nice and mixed, you can go ahead and use a toothpick or something else small. And that way you can go around and put it pretty much the only spots that you're going to want, like chunky rust, like if you've got holes in the car or around the edges of the armor panel where it's like looks like it's been broken off or something. Again, there's no real wrong way to do this. It's whatever looks good to you. And this is only one step of a couple of different things we're going to do, so there's not really a lot you could do to actually like mess it up. Once you're happy with that, you can go ahead and paint on whichever method you prefer. Some more rust. I have an airbrush paint that is actually called rust, but it's actually really brown, so I mixed a bit of red with it. And I'm just going over all the chunky rust that I put down to sort of blend it into the metal. Of course, if you're using something like nets or like really large panels where it's a whole lot of silver, definitely make sure you get that around pretty good. You don't really have to worry about going overboard too much because we're going to dry brush over this. Just don't turn it solid red. Speaking of going over it with a dry brush though, using that exact same paint, I'm going to go through and dry brush over the spots that I did not get with the airbrush. Sometimes the airbrush can put out a little bit more paint than you really want, so the dry brush is a bit more controlled. To add a bit more weathering and damage, I used a very small drill bit on my little rotary tool here, and went through and poked a few little spots. On the cars themselves, it's not necessary to actually drill a hole, just, you know, make a mark. It'll be nice and shiny silver underneath the car's paint. For any of the resin printed pieces, you can go ahead and drill straight through that, just, you know, careful about the dust. And once you're all done with that, go ahead and grab a silver marker and go dot all of the holes. Well, any of them that aren't already silver anyway. That way they look like a fresh hole. While you have your silver marker out, that's also a pretty good opportunity to add scratches or like really sharp, shiny bits around the edges or something. You just kind of wipe the edge of the marker on the edge of the thing, and you'll get a nice scratch look. But of course, we are still going to go in with some gunmetal metallic and dry brush over all of our rust, so that the rust looks like it is underneath other metal, you know, trying to make it look authentic. Rust isn't usually just a big clump of orange and red. Sometimes, but probably not on something that moves around and bumps into other cars a lot. Once you're all done, go ahead and seal it up. You can use airbrush, gloss varnish, or matte varnish, or rattle can. That works just fine too. Of course, you guys know me. I like my hairspray. It's easy, it's convenient, doesn't smell too bad. And once those are dry, we'll go ahead and do the spinny thing. For the Pseudo tank, we're going to go with a heavy truck, mostly because it's got a lot of build slots. This is definitely the most expensive car of the list, but it's got the tank track upgrade. That does go into advanced rules that I didn't really want to use, but they're there if you want them, and it fits the aesthetic of the vehicle. Of course, I mentioned earlier before, the big gun on top is going to be a 125mm cannon, and that thing is turret mounted, which makes it real expensive, but it's awesome. And because it's sort of a pseudo tank and I put a whole lot of panels in this thing, we're going to go the other way of this team's perks and take an actual armor plate upgrade. That gives it +2 hull points. It also gives it a total cost of 51 cans though, so you may or may not want to use this in your game. It might be the only car you have depending on what budget you're going with. But it's still cool. For the blue truck, we're going to go ahead and go with a regular old truck. We are taking the prison car middleweight thing from the sponsor. That reduces the cost of the car by 4 cans, but it also reduces the hull by 2 points. It's the opposite of an armor upgrade. The dude in the back there is going to be a heavy MG rear mounted for the guns. Of course, the dropper in the back is going to be a glue dropper, and the little harpoon on top. Mostly because I misread how this team works, but whatever, it's fine. This thing is relatively cheap at a total cost of only 17 cans. So this crazy looking thing, we're going to go ahead and use the ambulance for the vehicle type. That gives it a perk that has uppers and downers, which does cool stuff that's, again, advanced rules I'm not really using, but they're there if you want them. It has a steel net. That's a crew-fired weapon thing, however you want to call it, so it doesn't use any slots. It also looks pretty cool hanging out up there on top, a little bit of a Mad Max feel to it. Got a ram up front with a harpoon on it. Those each count as separate things, but you know. And then the mine dropper hanging out the back. I'm also going to take the prison car upgrade on this one, reducing its cost by 4 cans and reducing its hull by 2 points as well, but that does make it a relatively affordable car at only 25 cans. Alright, well that'll do it for this one. The next team after this is going to be Team Scarlet, which I've been crazy excited about because the pirate aesthetic. If you're on my Patreon, you've seen a few behind the scenes sneak peeks at what I got going on for that. But I guess you'll see that on the next video. So, of course, as always, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one.